Hello and welcome. My name is Ben Hales with Transform My Poker, and today's theme is table chat. Interesting one. We get a lot of questions in, and I like reading your stories about the live hands that you've played and some of the table banter that goes on involving both heroes and villains. And it strikes me sometimes that there's quite a lot of information being given away and being gained through table chat that sometimes you're guilty of not paying full attention to or not giving enough credit to the importance of this. So I thought I'd do a short video with some of the do's and do nots of table chat. It's not my specialist area, I must admit, but I think I've got some interesting things to say, and hopefully you'll find this of use. Let's go to the first slide. So I'm going to start with live play, and then there'll be a short slide at the end for online players. General advice on things not to do. Let's start with the most obvious, the one that everybody already knows, but still happens from time to time. Don't talk about a hand whilst it's in progress. Not good form. And especially if you're not involved in the hand, because you could be giving information away to one of your opponents. It's just not good form. Secondly, don't criticize other people at the poker table. It's just bad etiquette. There's no need for it. And again, you're not really gaining anything apart from potentially riling your opponents. So that's the first couple of points. To carry on with that, I would say if you want to ask a question, whether it's to the dealer or to someone else, make sure that you do so either when the hand's not in progress or when it's your turn to act. If somebody else is thinking about a decision and you've got some kind of a question, it's better not to ask it while someone else is thinking. There may be exceptions, but generally that's a good rule of thumb. So, pay attention to whose turn it is. In general, I recommend avoiding discussing poker strategy whilst playing at the table. You're probably going to be revealing information rather than gaining information, so it's best to avoid poker strat chat. Okay, now let's turn our attention to the reasons why people are talking at the table. For me, there are only 3 reasons for table chat. It's important you know which reason is the one why you're talking at the table. And it doesn't matter which one it is, but you need to know which one it is, okay? So first up, the most common one, the one that's going to be the answer for most of us. We're not just poker playing for making money, we're playing because we enjoy it. We're human beings, we've got emotions, we're interacting socially, and we're having fun. So if that's the case for you, that's fine. Make sure you're careful about when you're talking during a hand. You need to try and be consistent with all your body movements and the way that you're talking. Try not to give information away whilst you're chatting, and definitely avoid talk about poker strategy. The second reason why I think people like to talk at the table is to gather information. The clever players out there. This is one that I avoid. I'm not an expert at this. So for me, it's a big no-no unless you're skilled at it or you want to develop this skill. Then by all means, probe, ask questions, try to gather information by talking, but try not to give information away. Delicate balance. So that's the second reason why people may like to chat. And then the third and final reason that I can come up with is to give information. And this might seem counterintuitive, but you could be giving information away and playing with people's heads. You may be deliberately giving away a false tell. You might want to make them believe you don't know much about poker, or you may want to do the opposite, or you may just want to, like I say, confuse your opponents by giving away information that just causes them confusion. Okay, now let's expand on the downside of table chat. Okay, it's very simple. You are giving information away. Every time you open your mouth, it's possible that someone is gleaning information from what you are saying. So in an ideal world, we're going to stay as silent as possible. Just be aware of the potential downsides. And like I say, try to be as consistent as possible in the way in which you interact with everybody else. Try not to do something different depending on whether you've got a good hand or a bad hand, or you're feeling happy or sad. Try to be consistent. One final point I want to make on this giving away of information is that when you're gathering information, you're generally only getting a little bit of information on one player. But when you're giving information, you do so to the whole table, not just to the person that you're speaking to. So the guys that are sat there silent, they could be listening and gathering the information. So be extra careful, extra aware of that. Okay, now it is time for the juicy bit. I'm going to give you some tells. I'm going to give you 3 tells that you may be aware of, you may have heard of before, but they're things you might be able to use to your advantage at the live tables. First up, if you see someone who's been quiet, you know that they're normally quiet, and then they start talking, that's an alarm bell. That's a sign of strength. It's usually nervous energy that's making them suddenly start talking. So be aware of that. It's usually a sign of strength. Second up, if you see someone make a short, sharp declaration, one way or the other, about how they feel in a hand, so I don't like this or I do like this. If it's a short statement, it's usually a reverse psychology thing. So they're saying they don't like it, they really love it, or I'm feeling good about this. Normally they're not. So look out for those short statements because they usually reverse information. On the other hand, if it's a detailed description, the more information that's coming from that player, the more likely it is to be true. And the more detail there is, the more likely it is to be true. So there's 3 things you might be able to use next time you're out listening into poker chat at the tables. Okay. If you want to know more about that type of thing, Verbal Poker Tells, a book by Zachary Elwood. Zach's definitely a leader in this field. He's got, I think, 3 or 4 books out on the subject. He's been on my podcast, the Post-Flop Poker Podcast, and he's a stand-up guy. I recommend checking out that book if this subject interests you. It's a specific part of the game. And for me, it's not something I want to dive into too much. But if you're one of those people who thrive on the psychology, this might just be for you. So yeah, check that one out. Finally, for you online guys, I know I've not said anything about table chat for online players. So I'm just going to finish up with some short advice on this. First up, I really don't advise using online table chat. There's no benefits really, and so unless you've got a clear reason why you would talk on the table, I just don't think it's a good idea. It's usually a sign of a fish, to be honest, and you don't really want to be advertising yourself as a fish. Usually good online players will not use table chat at all. They usually got far too many things to do. It's not great for social interaction. Why bother with it? You're unlikely to make friends. You're unlikely to gather information. You definitely could give information away. So that's really my take on online table chat. Just don't do it. And that concludes this short video on Table Chat. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have further thoughts, maybe you've got some tales that you know of you'd like to add to the list, do so down there. Give us the thumbs up on the like button, and I'll look forward to talking to you again soon. My name's Ben Hales with Transform My Poker. Thanks for listening.